Alright, so I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm so happy that I get to share it with you guys today. Before I share it though, I just want to give this small caveat, which is I don't expect what I'm going to say to be very popular. And I wish I could share the evidence with you before I share the results, but that'll be pretty boring, so I'm just gonna hop right to it. In Dragon Ball Super, Tails, specifically Saiyan Tails, suppress Saiyan power. There is tons of evidence in the series, so this includes Dragon Ball Super, Z, and Dragon Ball, to support this, and that is what I will be going through in this video. But before we get into it, just real quick guys, my name is Dooley. You could find me at youtube.com/Dooley, but you won't just find me, you will also find hundreds of thousands of Dragon Ball Super fans, a growing family that you are welcome to join. You can do so by clicking the subscribe button below this video or the link in the description. If you do decide to do that, then welcome to the family in advance. That said, let's hop into this video. So I'm just going to start it off with one of the most compelling piece of evidence for Saiyan Tails being a suppressant of their powers. And that is the strongest Saiyans to ever exist. So we're talking Broly, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Trunks, and Goten, and even the Universe 6 Saiyans that we've seen so far. All of these Saiyans either never had a tail or attained their massive leap in power after losing their tail and not having it regrow for an extended period of time. Alright, so this alone doesn't prove that Tails suppress Saiyan power, but I think it's very interesting. I think it gets even more interesting, however, when you consider this fact. Before the age of Goku, one of the strongest Saiyans to ever live was King Vegeta. Now we know the Saiyan race has existed for at least thousands of years. The earliest Saiyan we can date is Yamoshi. I'll talk about Yamoshi more a little bit later in this video, but for now I'm referencing him because his story is the oldest Saiyan story that we know. In Dragon Ball Z, I believe it mentioned that the legendary Saiyan, who we now know as Yamoshi, existed about 1,000 years ago. Now in Dragon Ball Super, that 1,000-year number has become a bit more vague. It's just referred to as ancient Saiyan history. Either way, we know that from Yamoshi's time to Goku's time, which is at minimum about 1,000 years, one of the strongest Saiyans to come into existence in that time period is King Vegeta. That's why he became king and had the planet named after him, because he had the smarts and the power. King Vegeta was also likely the strongest person on the planet because he had a tendency to get rid of anyone, even babies, who had the potential to become stronger than he is, as seen with Broly. Now, King Vegeta had a power level of about 10,000. To quickly put that into perspective, Goku had a power level of 150 million when he first achieved Super Saiyan on planet Namek fighting Frieza. But let's take Goku out of the equation for a second. Let's look at Kaba from Universe 6. One of the reasons why Vegeta was able to teach Kaba how to achieve Super Saiyan so easily is because Kaba already had the power level for it. He just didn't know how the transformation worked. Kaba's base form is already well into the millions. His Super Saiyan 2 transformation, which he achieved only a short time after the Super Saiyan transformation, is into the billions. This implies that if Kaba existed in Universe 7, he wouldn't just be stronger than the average Saiyan before Goku's time. He would be hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of times stronger than the top Saiyans from our universe. Let's take a look at another race that exists between both universes, Namekians. Piccolo fought two Namekians in the Tournament of Power, Sayonel and Purina. Yes, Piccolo was stronger than these Namekians, but not millions of times stronger. I know that Sayonel and Purina turned out to be fusions themselves, but Piccolo is also a fusion between himself, Nail, and Kami. You can argue that we don't know exactly how many Namekians Sayonel and Purina fused with, but we also don't know the multiplier for each of those fusions. And also, because there were two Namekians instead of just one, it implies that there is a limit to the amount of fusions any one Namekian can do. Anyway, the point of all this is to say, when you take into account the fight between Piccolo and these two Namekians from Universe 6, it doesn't matter if you think Piccolo was stronger or they were stronger, the power difference wasn't that great. Neither of them was clearly twice as strong as the other, much less 1,000 times stronger than the other. Or in the case of the Saiyans, millions of times stronger. So if the fact that they're from different universes itself isn't enough to explain the vast power gap between these two branches of the Saiyan race, then what is? I know what some of you guys are thinking. For the guys that have been keeping up with Dragon Ball Super news, this might feel like an easy answer. The answer is S cells. Akira Toriyama explained to us a few months ago that one of the most important factors to allow a Saiyan to achieve Super Saiyan is the amount of S cells in their body. Now, a Saiyan can inherit S cells from their parents, like Goku Gohan, Trunks, and Goten did, but a Saiyan can also develop S cells by having a righteous heart and having a personality that encourages love and kindness, etc., etc. To you guys who have this answer, I would say you are partially correct. S cells do play a major role in why Universe 6 Saiyans are stronger than Universe 7 Saiyans. But if that's all that mattered, what about Gine? Gine was Goku's mom, who was extremely loving and caring and kind. We learn more about her in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie and also in the manga Dragon Ball Minus. Gine was so kind, Bardock would tease her and call her, quote, such a softie. Almost having tears in her eyes, her final words to Goku are, we'll come get you as soon as we can. Take care. Gine's personality was definitely that of a Saiyan with a righteous heart. And because of her profession and a bit of what we saw when Bardock walked through the streets of his homeland in Dragon Ball Minus and in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, it implies that there were other Saiyans like Gine, good people. Anyway, Gine's personality definitely suggests that she had an excess of S cells, and it's likely where Goku inherited some of his S cells. I talk about that more in a video that I'll link now. Anyway, Gine wasn't powerful. She definitely wasn't more powerful than Bardock, and even though she had an excess of S cells, there was nothing to show that her power was comparable to Kaba, or even Kale or Caulifla from Universe 6, who again were all likely hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of times stronger than Gine was. So if S cells alone aren't the answer, then what is? And I know some of you guys could already see where I'm going with this, but it's the tails. The thing that made Universe 6 Saiyans, in some cases hundreds of thousands, millions of times stronger than Universe 7 Saiyans, is the fact that Universe 7 Saiyans had tails and Universe 6 Saiyans do not. Not only did Universe 7 Saiyans have tails, but they fostered them. They were part of their culture. Their tails was part of the strategy that King Vegeta used to defeat the Truffles and win the planet. The Saiyans from Universe 7 cherished their tails because it gave them the ability to transform into an Uzaru. They thought it was the source of their great power, not fully understanding that their tails came at a cost. It suppressed almost all of their true fighting potential. It would make sense that the Saiyans from Universe 7 were unable to figure this out because of the way they viewed their tail. It was not a common occurrence for a Saiyan to lose his tail permanently as an adult. I can say this confidently because if you look at the elite soldiers for King Vegeta, the ones who were most likely to be in combat often, they all had their tails fully intact. All of the Saiyans that Bardock interacted with in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie and in Dragon Ball Super Minus had their tails fully intact. Universe 7 Saiyans would even train their tails to overcome the weakness of them losing their power if their tail was grabbed in combat. It's why they kept their tails wrapped around their torso. It's why Vegeta learned the special ability to create fake moonlight. Universe 7 Saiyans didn't just have tails, they cherished them. It was a source of pride and power. And this is why even after what is likely thousands of years, they were unable to figure out that their tails were actually suppressing their true potential. If you're not yet convinced, consider this. For the first 18 years of his life, so being around the same age as Kaba, Goku had all the ingredients necessary to be extremely strong and even go Super Saiyan. He had the S cells he inherited from his mom. He had the S cells that he developed himself living on Earth and having his personality. But yet at the end of Dragon Ball, the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, Goku had a power level of about 900. It was actually about 400, but Goku was able to use the Kamehameha then, and the power level of his Kamehameha was a little over 900. So let's just give Goku the benefit of the doubt and say because that was the power level of his attack, it was also his maximum power level. Now with a 900 power level, you're a god to the average human, but you're nothing special in the eyes of the Saiyans. King Vegeta with his power level of 10,000 would still easily defeat Goku at this point. This was Goku at age 18, and he was roughly the same strength all the way up to age 25. And at 25, his power level went from about 900, which is what it was when he fought Raditz, to 150 million, which is what it was when he transformed to a Super Saiyan on planet Namek. Finally, Goku's power level was comparable or stronger than the power level of the Saiyans from Universe 6. And this all happened within the time span of a little bit over a year. In fact, for Goku's physical body, it was all much less than a year because he spent the majority of this time dead. Now, I want to share something with you guys that I found while doing research for this video that I think may be very interesting and play a role in Dragon Ball Super later on somehow. The time between Goku permanently losing his tail at the end of Dragon Ball and him becoming a Super Saiyan in the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z was about 6 years if you factor in the year he lost while he was dead during the Saiyan saga. Now, the time between Vegeta permanently losing his tail and becoming a Super Saiyan, so seeing that massive leap in power from a few thousand to in the hundreds of millions, that time was also about 6 years. Vegeta lost his tail when he was 30 on Earth fighting against Goku, and he became a Super Saiyan when he was 36 during the Android saga. I thought that was pretty interesting, but what's even more interesting is that when you look at Gohan and the last time we saw his tail, he was around 5 years old in his first battle against Vegeta. And again, 6 years later, when Gohan was around 11, was when we saw that massive leap in his power level from a few thousand to hundreds of millions. He transformed into Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 for the first time, briefly in the hyperbolic chamber and then officially not too long after against Perfect Cell. Like I said, I don't know if this is something that will play a role later on in the series, but it looks like it's about 6 years after a Saiyan permanently lose their tail that they're able to begin tapping into their true potential. Now, I don't want to undermine S cells because this is another thing, according to Akira Toriyama, that all these Saiyans had in common. But I want to point out that it's not just S cells. It's S cells and the lack of a tail, which implies that the tail is doing something to suppress their power. I'm going to give you guys a final example here because I think this is the nail in the coffin. Take a look at Gohan and Goten. Same mother, same father. They were likely born with a similar amount of S cells in their bodies. The main difference, however, is that Gohan was born with a tail and Goten wasn't. But by the age of 6 or 7, Goten was already able to achieve Super Saiyan. He was already at that point where his power level was hundreds of thousands times stronger than the average Saiyan from Universe 7. I had an entire other section of this video prepared where I talk about how the tail allows Saiyans to access Uzaru power. But now with Broly in his Ikari form, we find out that that's not necessary. Saiyans can access that power without their tail, which raises the question, what were tails doing for Saiyans during all those years since Yamoshi? Also, because I mentioned that I would talk more about Yamoshi, I'm a man of my word, so I wanted to say real quick that we've never seen a Saiyan with his tail attain Super Saiyan form. We know Yamoshi was the first Super Saiyan, the legendary Super Saiyan, and I wonder if he was an exception to this rule. The concept art that we saw for Yamoshi in the Battle of Gods movie did have a tail, but then the art changed in the Dragon Ball Super anime, which is what we would consider canon, and in that, his tail is not visible. Was this an intentional change? If Yamoshi really doesn't have a tail, then he would be the first Saiyan from Universe 7 outside of Goku, Vegeta, and company. And since he was also the first Saiyan to achieve Super Saiyan, it would pretty much confirm, beyond a reasonable doubt, that tails are what have been suppressing the Saiyan race from Universe 7. I wish I could end the video right here. It's already almost 13 minutes, but there's one final thing that I need to address before I do that. And that is the comment that I know is going to pop up in the comment section, which is, tails don't exist anymore because Akira Toriyama doesn't like them. Although that's partially true, you guys who feel that way need to realize that Akira Toriyama doesn't draw Dragon Ball Super anymore. There's an entire staff that does that. And in cases where they have to draw the tail, they do. For example, Paragus, Broly's dad, still has a tail. If they just hated drawing tails so much, they could have just wrote into the story that he lost his tail to an accident or something like that. Surprisingly though, Broly doesn't have a tail. They took the time to write the backstory of Paragus removing Broly's tail when he was younger. Anyway, I've said enough. If you made it this far in the video, let me know what you think of all this in the comment section below. Hashtag Do Crew. I'm working on something big for the family. I can't wait till I'm able to give you guys more information about it. For now though, have a great day. I will be talking to you again real soon. Bye.